The tides of populism and nationalism currently sweeping many developed countries have been accompanied by demands that unwelcome and inconvenient voices be removed from public discourse.
Unfortunately, young people and trans people have been lied to over many years about what their rights are. And it's like Naomi said, I just can't say it in a more diplomatic way than that. But they've been lied to, and there has to be a period of correction because other people have rights.
It seems that unless a commentator or a television program, channel, or a newspaper reflects exactly the complainant's worldview, it must be guilty of bias or corruption.
J.K. Rowling has issued a brilliant smackdown to Vice News.
Intolerance of alternative viewpoints is spreading to places that make me, a moderate and a liberal, most uncomfortable.
If you can say Sharia courts are bad for women, I promise we will win. Islam is bad for women.
The biggest issue facing women today, which mainstream feminists choose to ignore, is the violence against women by third world immigration primarily.
That means reducing or keeping down the number of people who transition, and that's for two reasons. One of them is that every one of those people is a person who's been damaged. But the second one is every one of those people is basically, you know, a huge problem to a sane world. Like, if you've got people that, whether they're transitioned, whether they're happily transitioned, whether they're unhappily transitioned, whether they're detransitioned, if you've got people who've dissociated from their sex in some way, every one of those people is someone who needs special accommodation in a sane world where we re-acknowledge the truth of sex.
Are you tired of losing out on amazing career opportunities to the
villainous transsexual menace?
Do you wake up every day crying because your husband left you for a
disgusting TRA shapeshifter?
Have you had to share the bathroom with a
biology-defying TIM cultist who had a pee and left without even acknowledging you, the superior biological female?
Well, do we have a solution for you? From now on, every purchase of Hogwarts Legacy or the Quidditch video game, every visit to Harry Potter World, and every piece of shitty $1 Gryffindor merch made in your local sweatshop goes towards a giant pot of money, over $1 billion, thanks to our
Lord and Saviour, the true goddess of love and light,
J.K. Rowling, all saved up in a nice neat little pile to fight for your hard-won sex-based rights across the world. Confused about what sex-based rights are? Why are they different to regular rights? Well, don't worry, it's easy to understand. I'll tell you now. Abortion rights? We don't fight for them. They're not sex-based rights. Equal pay? We don't fight for that, don't be silly. Men deserve more money, they're biologically superior. Domestic violence? We don't fight against that either, unless you count being pro-domestic violence, but for trans people. What we mean by fighting for sex-based rights is
those filthy so-called transgender abominations must be eradicated from public life, banned from every building but your own home. Their healthcare made evil, and their stain wiped from the very face of Mother Earth. She's called Mother for a reason. Adult human planet.
So, now that you know what we're all about, what are you waiting for? Request a little help from the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund. Or just make sure its pot stays full for the next wronged woman who had to see a trans woman out in public and wasn't legally allowed to murder them. By buying the endless array of Harry Potter themed goods and services that every store, especially the souvenir shops in Britain, conveniently stocks. Call the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund today and eliminate the transgender menace for good.
You know there'll be jokes.
Good morning, my cadre of biological females, and of course, my other cadre of synthetic females who, like the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica, will soon enact their master plan to replace all real women with robo-transsexual copies. To steal their jobs. And their men, presumably. At least that's what J.K. Rowling told me when I asked her if I could have some money from her new venture, the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund, which also has a second, stupider name, because J.K. Rowling is literally now comparing herself to a god. No, I'm not joking. This is true and I will explain it. She thinks she is doing what a god would do. Frankly, Jesus could have written Harry Potter, but J.K. Rowling couldn't have fed the 5,000.
I hope you're hungry. For nothing.
Hello to all men and non-binary people too. I'm sure if you apply for the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund, you'll also have a pretty good chance of getting a handsome chunk of change, as long as you make it clear that you want to use it to send all trans people directly to the Shadow Realm.
Mind crush!
Though, of course, if you are trans, you'll probably have to hide that from Rowling. I, may or may not have done so for this video. But enough about large piles of gold and petty vengeful gods. I am just as magical as either of those topics, thank you very much, because I am Brigitte Empire, science and culture correspondent for the Daily Telegraph, the only newspaper in Britain still in regular contact with the Greek god that J.K. Rowling has decided she's now an avatar for. Not because we believe we're waging a war for truth and justice like Rowling believes, because that's what she now admittedly believes she's doing by trying to make it harder for trans people to have a poo in public, but because the Greek gods may have provided us with a little startup capital a couple of thousand years ago, and we may slightly, a little bit, owe them more money than exists on the planet at present. And entirely an ancient drachmae, which, not easy to come by these days. Learn from us, my children. When you take out a loan, make sure you aren't paying more in interest than you are on immortality potions. Speaking of being fucked over by the gods, I had a long conversation / discussion that I really tried not to turn to an argument recently with a friend who is a massive Harry Potter head and a trans ally. They've been on a bunch of marches, they are consistently on the right side with every policy, they're a great friend, so please don't call them out in the comments, and their heart is in the right place. But that heart has a weakness. A weakness for the Wizard franchise. You see, J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter books, long ago confirmed that she considers her income from Harry Potter products a message of endorsement for her views. And given he's a proud trans ally, I thought he might need to be reminded, given that he was talking about how excited he was for the Quidditch video game and for Hogwarts Legacy 2, that every Harry Potter toy, every purchase of the game, every Lego set, every t-shirt, every bag, every official stream of the movies, and in the near future, the official watch figures for the Harry Potter TV show reboot on HBO Max, HBO, or whatever the name the network is going by, that J.K. Rowling feels is more valid than any trans person's chosen name? Where was I? Oh yes, the thing is, these conversations can be like talking to a brick wall. Harry Potter is so ingrained in some people's lives, particularly people my age who grew up as the books were coming out, that when you ask that they please pirate the TV show and games, instead of paying money for them that provably goes directly into initiatives like the recent trans bathroom ban in the UK, that they act like you're asking them to chew off their own legs. I know an embarrassing number of people that usually have hearts the size of cruisers, who go on marches, who advocate for our rights, who educate others in our stead, and yet cannot bring themselves to not pay £80 for a 6 out of 10 game about an anti-Semitic caricature that does the blood libel. Directly funding, on top of all that, the main person behind trans people being banned from toilets, trans people's healthcare being severely restricted, and so much more. But this is the problem with celebrities being the faces of these hate campaigns. They can leverage their fame in the way that people like Helen Joyce or Maya Forstater just can't. And they've realised, just as most of us trans people have, that people will happily pay money that they know will go to making our lives hell if it means they get to be a little wizard boy running around in a badly rendered and disappointingly empty pastiche of a British wizard school. Or what a British boarding school would be if you replaced the teacher's unrelenting nonsense with threats of death from wizard Nazis, whom the author now presumably thinks did nothing wrong. Especially regarding her recent statements, we'll get to that later. Or that they're an allegory for trans people, which is also something she has actually said. Things, unfortunately, have only gotten worse on this front, with J.K. Rowling now explicitly siphoning off a vast segment of her Harry Potter-born fortune, and now you can apply to get our rights crushed yourself, with the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund. So, what the fuck is that? Let's talk about it.
The Supreme Court in the UK handed down a ruling that Rowling has fought for years. A trans woman will no longer be considered a woman by law in the UK. Nobody sane believes or has ever believed that humans can change sex or that binary sex isn't a material fact. These letters do nothing but remind us of what we know only too well. that pretending to believe that these things has become an elitist badge of virtue.
The long and short of it is, as summarised very neatly in this subheading in The Advocate, Harry Potter profits are going directly towards anti-transgender legal cases. J.K. Rowling, you might have seen recently, is a billionaire again, and she has plans for that money. Actual big evil plans, like actual supervillain shit. Unlike other modern-day supervillains, like, say, Elon Musk, however, she has no Donald Trump with which to fall out incredibly accused of being a paedophile. So, as a supervillain lacking another supervillain to fight with, like a Marvel Comics Anniversary crossover event, she is using her vast wealth, paid for by you, yes you, and everyone you care about. If they, that is, buy Harry Potter-themed items, or consume the media in a legal manner. She is using your money and your friends' money and your family's money to go fully scorched earth on trans people. The timing on this is actually quite interesting. Rowling put £70,000, that we know of, towards the case Sex Matters brought to the Supreme Court in the UK recently, that resulted in basically a trans bathroom ban. The people celebrating outside the courthouse that day included personal friends of Rowling, such as admitted trans exterminationist Helen Joyce.
Every one of those people is basically, you know, a huge problem to a sane world. Like, if you've got people that, and whether they're transitioned, whether they're happily transitioned, whether they're unhappily transitioned, whether they're detransitioned.
And the woman who got transphobed to be named as a protected characteristic in UK law, and subsequently got absolutely terrified of a children's library mascot like all normal people obviously do all the time. That is Maya Forstater. And along with these two, the gender critical movement, as they like to call themselves when they're not just using the word TERF amongst themselves as if they didn't argue it was a slur for years, was insisting the Supreme Court decision was a complete and total victory and vindication for transphobes, and every person who ever called them out will come crawling back any minute and admit they were right the whole time. As Helen Joyce literally said on, and I can't believe I'm saying the name of this cringe-ass show out loud, Trigonometry. Ooh. Oh, sorry. Oh, I cut myself on that edge.
It's great. The way we get to a win is that everybody who was on the wrong side has to sheepishly head over to the right side. There's the Golden Bridge, the famous Sun Tzu Golden Bridge. They've got to go over the Golden Bridge and they'll pretend they were never on the wrong side. And hello, Anas, hello, welcome to Team TERF.
Welcome to Team TERF, welcome to Team Sanity, Team Reality.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
The gender critical community, having fought to the highest court in Britain and won, truly expected everyone in the trans community to pack up their things and go home. And this isn't a joke. One of the reasons Rowling posted that in bad taste picture of her being very, very oppressed, sitting on a super yacht in the Mediterranean, smoking a cigar and drinking booze, at the news that trans people were all going to suffer horribly, thanks in large part to her massive financial contribution, is because she really thought that this was over. They had won. Trans people were defeated, and now we just disappear from the earth like we've been snapped by Thanos or something. Trans people would all have to go home and stop being trans. As if that's a thing that can actually happen. They think it can, because they think we're just predators, or victims of predators from the side of us that are predators in the case of trans men and non-binary people that are assigned female at birth. And so they expect we'll go home, say, well, it was good while it lasted, I guess I can't goon anymore, and detransition. Because they fundamentally don't understand what trans people are. Helen Joyce told, Jesus Christ, why did I say this name twice? Trigonometry, that everyone who was ever pro-trans would, in the wake of this Supreme Court decision, throw trans people under the bus. Say the trans folks are right all along, and apologise for ever doubting them. In fact, while in the immediate aftermath of the decision, the transos were celebrating and waiting for all their friends and family who'd stopped talking to them because of their frothing at the mouth bigotry to come home, it became pretty clear, pretty quickly, that such a thing would never happen. Because they were never right. And all the decision did was make it clearer to more and more people how cruel and monstrous the goals of this movement were. I know a bunch of normies who finally are saying how bad it is for trans people and checking in. This is the opposite of how they thought this was going to go. Politicians came out celebrating the decision, and their popularity continued to fall. Their constituents panicked. Backbench MPs apparently are really worried about this, although you wouldn't know it from how little they fucking do about it. Although, to be fair, I did, for this video and for my own personal concerns right to my MP, and he was pretty nice about it, saying he'll stand up for us, and that he supports interpretations of the ruling and similar laws that would actually help, although he didn't really promise to do much about it, except interpret the law in a way that means we can go to the bathroom, and gave a very weird response, re the cash review, but weird in a way that you would as a politician who's trying to do the right thing. So what more would I expect from a British MP, eh? Especially in Starmer's Labour Party. A competent MP is like a... Well, I was going to make an analogy, but it's Jeremy Corbyn. It's like Jeremy Corbyn.
He is a man of the people because no one's challenging the people. Labour isn't Labour. Labour hasn't been Labour for how many decades now? What is Labour doing for the country?
This event is the gender-critical movement's very own day after the rapture. Trans people didn't, in fact, ascend, and now we are all left behind with them. The preacher said the world would end, and after selling all their property, quitting their jobs, and having one last celebration, they woke up and the world was still there, and they have to deal with the mess that is now their lives the day after they failed to go to heaven. Many online express shock and fear. The conspiracy goes deeper than we ever thought, they said. Their husband didn't unleave them. Their kids didn't pick up the phone. No one called them to tell them that they were right and kiss their boots. So, did this mean they were wrong? No, of course not. They can never be wrong. You see, in these doomsday cults, despite what those outside the cult might see as the obvious implications of the foretold doomsday having not come, people don't leave when their apocalypse does not come. In fact, they only become more committed to the cult. And no one is more committed to proving that they did not ruin their flawless reputation for no reason than the most beloved British fantasy author of this century, whose name isn't Terry Pratchett, that being Coca-Cola Rowling.
Come to my country and be offensive and bigoted there.
While the rest of the gender-critical flock was soon back to their usual behaviour of pushing for more hatred of trans people, this Supreme Court decision clearly having not achieved their aims of Thanos snapping all trans people out of existence and making their children speak to them again, unlike the rest of them, Giant Coke Rowling has both the money and the power to actually do something to escalate this situation. One court case won't make all trans people die? Fine. Let's make as many court cases as possible until being a trans person in public basically guarantees getting sued. Bathrooms? Banned. Work? Banned. Housing? Banned. And soon, all trans people will have nowhere to go and will have to be put somewhere. Somewhere out of the way. Where joke Kira Rowling doesn't have to look at us anymore. And she has a concrete plan to do such a thing. It's called the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund. And, as usual for any news coming out of Britain, it's pretty bad. It's bad. It's scary. Scary and bad. And so, we're just going to pretend it's Halloween for a moment and be scared by The Advocate, the most spooky website on Al Gore's internet. Advocate, more like... Advocadabra? I need to go sit in a room that's cold for a bit, I think. J.K. Rowling is using her wealth obtained from the Harry Potter series to create an organisation dedicated to removing transgender people's rights in the workplace, in public life, and in protected female spaces. The author announced in a Saturday post to X, formerly Twitter, that she would be founding the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund, using her personal fortune. Why does that sound like Matt Berry? The website for the group states that it offers legal funding support to individuals and organizations fighting to retain women's sex-based rights in the workplace, in public life, and in protected female spaces. I looked into all options, and a private fund is the most efficient, streamlined way for me to do this, she said. Lots of people are offering to contribute, which I truly appreciate, but there are many other women's rights orgs that could do with the money, so donate away, just not to me. It is not the first time Rowling has used her over $1 billion net worth to influence legal cases involving so-called women's sex-based rights. A dog whistle used by herself and other anti-trans activists to exclude trans people from public spaces and reduce women to their genitals. Rowling donated £70,000 to the anti-trans group For Women Scotland in 2024, after it lost its challenge to a 2018 Scottish law that legally recognised trans women as women. The group appealed its case to the UK Supreme Court, which ruled last month that trans women aren't considered women under the nation's Equality Act. Rowling responded to the decision by posting a picture of her having a drink and smoking a cigar, with the text, "I love it when a plan comes together." And to be clear, this is just the spending that we know about. As I've noted in my videos about kellie-jay Keen, aka Posey Parker, an anti-trans maniac, head of Britain's dedicated transphobic political party, and designer of those shitty-ass adult human female t-shirts, J.K. Rowling has said online in public that she's offered to cover Keen's legal fees, and has done so multiple times. Keen will not have been the only person she has done this to. We already know about the £70,000 to Sex Matters after all. Especially given that Keen, at least in the past, was perhaps the most toxic person in the gender-critical movement, besides Graham Linehan, who is still the one person I am sure Rowling hasn't ever considered funding, given how often he cries about how she's never given him a crumb of attention, including turning up on her Twitter mentions to whine about how much she's done for her with no reward, like he's a snivelling court eunuch.
J.K. Rowling, please share this, this story. It would get across to so many more people, and I'm not sure if I've hurt your feelings or what, but you never tweet anything I do or say. I hope it's just a misunderstanding.
My queen, I have been reduced to carbonara meals for one for doing your work. May I please kiss your ring, or at least be able to sit at the table in the Great Hall?
Who the fuck is that? Guards! And she spent a non-significant amount of her fortune creating a crisis centre that specifically denies trans people entry. Now, this is illegal under the Equality Act 2010, but let's be honest with ourselves, no one, even those that are desperate for help, is going to, in their most vulnerable moments, risk fleeing an abuser for safety just to get accosted by the wizard lady and used as the scapegoat for her next big lawsuit. And the way to challenge that would be to try and get in and then to sue yourself, which, to be honest, no one wants to do that. So for now, this crisis centre apparently excludes trans women, even though that is explicitly illegal. Or is it? Because the Supreme Court decision by Sex Matters that J.K. Rowling donated £70,000 to, the one that banned us from toilets, says that you can discriminate if your reasoning is justified, but also that that would count as discrimination under gender assignment, as it's put in the Equality Act. So it's illegal and also legal? This is the reason Keir Starmer coming out and saying the Supreme Court decision gives clarity is laughable. It does precisely the opposite. The thing is, even Rowling seems to have forgotten the rules to this shelter she's funded, since one of the things you have to do to justify discrimination in the Supreme Court decision is demonstrate you are enforcing this consistently and not just discriminating. Something Rowling explicitly demonstrated she hasn't recently by hosting an anti-conference at her shelter with male speakers. So, cis men are allowed. But I bet a trans woman would warrant calling the police. Cool. Cool and good. Normal even. Definitely not discriminatory. Also, anti-conference? Remember when this woman was claiming that she was a moderate and a liberal?
Me, a moderate and a liberal.
Now she's doing Fox News shit in her specialised bigotry Batcave that should exist, and is supposed to exist, to look after vulnerable people fleeing abuse, instead of launching her inevitable next moral crusade against sex workers. How predictable for a TERF to turn into a swerve. And looking to do crackdowns on that'll lead to a proliferation of speakeasies for having a crafty wankin, presumably. Although, if her reaction to the Supreme Court decision is anything to go by, she'd start a fund dedicated to hunting and killing for sport anyone that so much as touches their own genitals without Mrs. Rowling's say-so, until the whole of the UK is wearing chastity belts that only she is the keep for. Getting back to, well, not that, and back to how Rowling's strategy is shifting from funding only people that she knows personally to an all-out war on trans people, while she has given money to legal cases defending virulent transphobes and directly attacking trans people openly multiple times now, she's now opened the process, so people can just contact her directly. If you do so, and you're transphobic enough, she might even turn on the money faucet for you. You see, all you have to do to be granted potentially tens of thousands of pounds to attack the tiny minority of trans people in the UK through abusing the already questionable British legal system is fill in a handy online form and wait for J.K. Rowling to come back to you. Like I did.
The J.K. Rowling Women's Fund. A legal fighting fund for women protecting their sex-based rights. I guess I will go and see what the deal is here. at the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund. The J.K. Rowling Women's Fund offers legal funding supporting to individuals and organisations fighting to retain women's sex-based rights in the workplace, in public life, and in protected female spaces. It provides women with the means and confidence to bring to justice cases that make legal precedents, force policy change, and make positive contributions to women's lives in the future. Well, I don't know about you, but J.K. Rowling's recent actions have made my life as a woman in single-sex spaces pretty difficult, so this is a really good place to fight her on her own terms and maybe even get some compensation if she's, as a fund. I'm assuming that she funds me for her fucking me over multiple times. So what does she fund? She funds legal representation for women in organisations who have lost their livelihoods or who are facing tribunals because of their expressed beliefs. I'm sure there are opportunities I haven't got because I'm trans. I'm assuming that's what she means. Are being forced to comply with unreasonable inclusion policies regarding single-sex spaces and services, or female-only clubs and events. Unreasonable inclusion policies, including J.K. Rowling, but not me, that is an unreasonable inclusion policy. And I think, based on my own experience, that I'm welcome in the women's toilets, given that I've never had a problem with it, and she keeps trying to get me away from them. So yeah, I think this fits. A challenging legislation which takes away the freedoms or protections women are entitled to. Okay, this is gotcha. This is for sure. I have been taken away the right to use the fucking bathroom by J.K. Rowling. I still use it. She doesn't want me to, and I could potentially go to jail. So we'll see how that goes. Yes, give me my freedoms and protections. Don't have adequate means to bring actions to court or to defend themselves. Now, this one is absolutely true for me because I have absolutely no fucking money. Shout out to my Patreon, everyone, please donate. But also, because I don't have a lawyer either, partially because of that first thing. So, if anything, I'm the perfect candidate for the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund. And I'm sure she will give me all of her money to make up for this. Even though, explicitly, this is for lawyers' fees. I guess I can get a lawyer. Listen, I probably need it if I get charged by J.K. Rowling for using the women's bathroom when I have all right to. And she funds my lawyer herself. Really, would that not show how noble she is and how great a feminist she is? I think that would work out. The J.K. Rowling's Women's Fund does not hire a lawyer on your behalf, so you must already have sought legal representation and have a clear desired outcome to your case. Okay, well, I've sought legal representation in that I follow the Good Law Project on Twitter, and Julian Morn has said that he will represent cases like this, I believe, if I recall, and if not, I'm sure he will, given his current stance. So yes, I've already sought legal representation on Twitter, and I have a clear desire of outcome to my case, in that J.K. Rowling gives me all of her money. Let's try this. How to apply? Yes, please. If this sounds like you, yes, it does. Fill out one of the eligibility checklists below. There's one for individuals and one for organisations. If the answer to any of these questions is no, then the fund is not for you. If it's yes to all of them, you can proceed to the online application form. After initial screening, applications go through a rigorous assessment by the Gregorian board. Awards are at the discretion of the board, and limited to closely defined legal actions with a clear goal and time span. Please note that the Gregorian is a private fund, not a charity or trust, and does not accept donations. Well, you'd hope it wouldn't, given that you took 1.6 billion, I believe it was 1.6 billion pounds, of fucking money from Harry Potter to do this. So, all my friends who I talked to who are very excited about Quidditch World Cup and did not budge when I said you're funding transphobia, well, see you on the other side of a jail cell, I suppose, because I'm going to fill in this fucking form. Except, hold on a second. Who is Pallas Athena? Why does she have the female symbol with a square? J.K. Rowling set up the Gregorian in order to empower women as they fight for their sex-based rights. Her inspiration was Athena, or Bias, the Greek goddess of wisdom and war, who believed warfare should only be used to protect the people and achieve justice. Jesus fucking Christ, you have strayed so far from fucking God's light at this point. Oh my lord. Athena's symbol, incorporated into the Gregorian logo, signifies a shield-handed woman, which seemed appropriate to the aims of the fund, giving women the means to protect themselves against oppression and unfairness. J.K. Rowling, you are not wise. You're not waging a war. You're a Karen on a fucking super yacht with lots of money throwing it at people who are upset because other people aren't being excluded from toilets. You're not going on the Gaza Freedom fucking flotilla. If you were, that might be appropriate, but you're not. You don't care about any of that stuff. You're not mentioning women in Palestine. You're not mentioning women in Sudan. You're not mentioning women in the Congo. You're not mentioning half this stuff that's actually happening. You're not mentioning the fight for abortion rights or anything. In fact, you don't need to care about that because you pally up with people who are actively trying to destroy it. No. You care about making trans people's lives harder. Athena, I believe, as petty as the Greek gods were, would probably strike you down for this. Given, she's the goddess of wisdom, and she can see that you're clearly out of your fucking depth. I can only hope that, like Athens, the city she's named after, she will eventually fall to, I guess that's not a good example because Athens fell to Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was gay. I hope she falls to the gays, and the next part doesn't happen, in which democracy is crushed, and then you get taken over by Italian proto-fascists for 2,000 years? 2,000 years. Okay, this analogy has gone way off the rails. We have to stop looking at this. I can't deal with this. I can't even look at this. Athena saved me. Athena, you are my favorite goddess in Hades. I don't believe you'd work with J.K. Rowling. I think you'd work with me instead. So, someone should redraw the Brigitte Empire, Britannia as Athena from Hades, but with my face. Okay, eligibility checklist. Let's see if I fit this. I think I probably will. To help you determine whether your case meets our funding criteria, please fill out the checklist below. If you can't tick any of the boxes, the fund is probably not for you. Please select either individuals or organisations, which will take you through to the correct application form if you can answer yes to all the questions. Okay, well, I am an individual. I guess I'm also an organisation, but for the sake of this, I'll stay as an individual. I don't want to... I think if I bring my YouTube channel into this, then it'll probably give a game away a little bit. Are you based in the UK or Ireland? Sure. Has your capacity to earn a living been affected by your beliefs? Yes, it actually has. Do you already have a lawyer or legal trade? Yes, Jolien, I consent. I consent, Jolien, and so do you, apparently. Do you have a clear idea of what you achieve? Yes, we'll see. Get your job back, a conversation for loss of earnings. Alright, to be fair, let's level with this right now. Liverpool John Moores University, you treated me a little bit like poo, but I didn't get a PhD out of it. I did know a lot of racist harassment and bullying by members of your staff who you refused to address, and also one of your forensics teachers. I don't know if this is T or not. Hopefully I will get sued for this. He was an exorcist for the fucking Pope for some reason, and he was a predator who groomed one of his students and then said it was okay because he made her his girlfriend afterwards. So you protected him, and you protected the racist bullies. We went all the way up to the top with that, and you were like, we can't do anything about racist bullying because we have a partnership with the University of Amsterdam, which I'm sure is how racism is supposed to work. It's just cancelled out by multidisciplinary handshakes. So fuck you. If I get money for the J.K. Rowling Fund, I guess I'll try and use it to fight racist harassment. I'll work out how to do that if I get the money, which I won't. But if I do, it'll go to some black advocacy charity. Let's say that. I don't care about me getting my academic job. At this point, I'm sold on just being a YouTube idiot. But I do think there should be justice for the people who were bullied, and racistly bullied at that. So here we go. No more racism. That's what we're going for, J.K. Rowling. And if you don't give me the money, that means you are pro-racism. So write that down, I guess. Without help, would you be unable to fund your own legal action? Absolutely, I am poor as dirt. If your case relates to your employment, have you already followed all your employer's dispute procedures? Yes, I did. I went straight to the top of the organisation. I asked them. I tried to make them make moves. They said, what do you want me to do? And I said, well, at least you should fire this person because they're making black students' lives hell. And they said, no, we can't do that. So, yeah, fuck you. Proceed to application. Okay. I need to play this carefully.
A few moments later.
Whereas, Tim, gotta use Tim, a trans-identified male, that's what they call people like me, was accepted and went on to do the job I deserved, given the media bias and the dangers of going against TRA doctrine. Please provide details of losses sustained of harm as a result of your case. Has your capacity to earn a living been affected by your beliefs about biological sex being unchangeable? Oh, whoa, hold on! That's the first time it's come out with this language. You see, this is the problem. They get you all these dog whistles and suddenly it's like, oh, sex is unchangeable. Excuse me, when did this come from? Have you heard of fish? They change their sex all the time. You know, I've been on hormones for several years and it's changed a lot of things, you know. I do not use social media except for Mumsnet. Store and process my personal data. Jesus.
A few moments later.
Ivana Sue Toquette Monet. Ivana Sue Toquette Monet. Okay, that's her name. We're putting that on. That's canon. That's her name. Hold on. Ivana Sue Toquette Monet. Oh, boys are eating good tonight. Okay. Welcome, Ivana Sue Toquette Monet. I'm sure you do. That's a bus. Verify. I am a human being. Thank you. J.K. Rowling, see you soon. We will be in touch soon, and I will be in touch with the goddess Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, who J.K. Rowling is certainly channeling by making it harder for everyone to live their lives in peace.
And it's not just idiots like me that get to do this. You too can play along at home, like my partner who does my channel art and whose socials are linked in the description did, applying for a grant for their machine that can scan people's chromosomes in seconds. Alternatively, you could do what they also did and type the entirety of My Immortal into the application form and tell everyone about how you're Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way and that you are Gothic. Now, will Rowling get back to me? Probably not, she hasn't yet, it's been a few weeks, but it was worth a try. If J.K. Rowling truly believes that she is channeling the spirit of the goddess Athena, which she factually does, then surely she must fund my request. Because there is no more just cause in relation for the battle for trans rights in the UK than 1,000 transgenders getting paid compensation by J.K. Rowling for what she's done to trans rights in this country. And for emotional damages, of course. On the day that I'm writing this, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, the body behind the horrific advice following the Supreme Court decision, and a body initially designed to promote equality, but chaired by one of the most vile ghouls in the country now, announced, really taking the whole protecting sex-based rights mask off, that trans people need to accept reduced rights after years of lies.
Young people and trans people have been lied to over many years about what their rights are. And it's like Naomi said, I just can't say it in a more diplomatic way than that.
And this is the world that we're living in, thanks to Rowling throwing her reputation, and more importantly, her fortune, around to strip us of even the barest minimum protections we had under the law until just a few short years ago.
But they've been lied to, and there has to be a period of correction, because other people have rights.
Which is a sentence that makes no sense grammatically, implying that trans people don't have any rights, only other people. But what I assume she meant is the fallacy that trans people having any protections under the law actively clashes with the rights of cis women by forcing them to have to sit in a cubicle next to us sometimes, or even be counted on winning the shortlists, which are, I shouldn't have to remind an equalities counsellor, there in the first place not because vagina equals needing a job, but because women get paid less and are often rejected for job opportunities they are qualified for in favour of cis men. Trans women also face these hurdles, and in fact what studies we have on the treatment of trans people in the workplace suggest that we get hurt even more by this. There is a trans pay gap that's even bigger than the regular gender pay gap. For the poor. And this happens because despite what J.K. Rowling will insist, employees don't consider us men. Neither do transos actually, they're quite nice to cis men and not to us. They consider us freakish monsters that don't deserve anything. To them we're not men, we're not women, and we're certainly not non-binary because they don't believe that that exists. We're some sort of degenerate monster that should be cast out from society. And when we pass enough to go stealth, maybe that's a thing we want to do, which we absolutely shouldn't even have to consider, we don't automatically get the same pay as cis men because they can sense we were born with a wanger. We'd have the same problems as cis women. Because that's not how any of this works. You can't sense chromosomes. You can't smell people's DNA. You don't have magical Shinigami eyes that can see ovaries through someone's crotch. Or at least I don't. Speaking of the EHRC, since the Supreme Court decision, part of Labour's panicked response to all of the backlash was finally deciding they were going to replace the chair of the commission. Before the election, they'd lined up Harriet Harman, a very established Labour figure and well-respected, who, for all my issues with her, is unequivocally not transphobic. Instead, they kept in the foaming at the mouth Baroness Faulkner, appointed by the famously competent and popular Prime Minister Liz Truss.
This fruit has always been part of Britain.
Now, I was hoping that they would perhaps replace her with Harman and we could have an equalities board that actually cares about promoting equality. But no, Labour have now tapped another active transphobe, associate of transphobic hate groups and proud member of Team TERF, Dr. Mary Ann Stevenson. Dr. Stevenson has previously attended Women's Place UK's conference and signed letters in opposition to trans rights, and I ask this with all sincerity, what is Rowling's money even going to do at this point? At every junction in this war Rowling is now open about waging, with the goddess Athena on her side or not, every institution in this country rolls over for transphobes over and over again. Puberty blockers? They've been banned, with deadly consequences for several children whose cases are actively being covered up by the NHS and Health Minister Wes Streeting, and kissed on by extension. Bathrooms and single-sex spaces? Banned! Throw all trans people in the sea if they dare to pee outside their own homes. Put them all under house arrest? Full trans healthcare bans? Well, there's an investigation going on right now in the government for the latter thing, and it might happen. And it's happening right now in the USA. If Elon and Trump can stop having a messy gay breakup online for a minute, why not here? We have a cast review for trans adults in the works right now, and I think we can all guess what the outcome of that will be. So, what war are you waging? You are basically in charge of government policy on trans people at this point. They bow down to your every whim. What battles do you need to fight? What war? You are the Empire. We're just subjects being constantly pummeled by your cries that the punishments aren't coming hard or fast enough. In fact, this narrative that women's rights are in active danger because an icky minority might have to be in the same space as them sometimes does not end with trans people. And the fight against trans people, I do believe, is winding down. They got everything they wanted. People are beginning to pivot, and not in a good way. Often people point out that gay people can be hit with the same logic as these anti-trans attacks, and they often are. But it gets even more outright fascist than that. This is a war Rowling is leaning into more and more, and one her friend and a bigot on Rowling's payroll, kellie-jay has been waging for a while now. One that is only growing and getting more and more scary. You see, for people that see every minority as an existential threat to the existence of white women, the natural conclusion of women and children must be protected from these evil minorities is the same as every country who decides this problem needs a solution. And as in the US, as in the UK in the past, as in many countries in the recent past, the minority in question is largely interchangeable. kellie-jay and a growing number of British Conservatives are now using the rhetoric of Keane and of Rowling and all of the gender-critical arguments to argue for an all-out war on immigrants and Muslims.
Our government should be very fucking careful before they open hotels full of men who are here illegally in this country. We would like our government to think about the safety of women and girls when it comes to importing men from third world countries where they couldn't give a shit about women. I will. So anyway, we just come to make a point. We think it needs to be said because these are the words that they will take from you because they will accuse you of being Islamophobic or racist. And we cannot be told to be silent on things that impact women on the basis that some bloke is going to get offended. Yes. So... So, men at Speaker's Corner, be on notice. We will come here each and every week to say the things that you don't want us to say. So, if you can say Sharia courts are bad for women, I promise we will win. If you can say for women. I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Because I never lose. Wonderful. Cut, Mary, cut.
Kellie-Jay Keen, the head of the Party of Women, which I made a whole video about last month, irrelevant as they are as a party now, is one of the biggest voices in the gender-critical movement. However, in the last few months, having spotted that the anti-trans rage perhaps is reaching its crescendo, she has decided now is the time to start to switch targets. She argues, with the same hatred in her voice she had only previously used to scream bloody murder about trans people, that Muslims are a danger to women and girls. That Sharia law is coming to Britain.
You've got the Iraqi law that they put down in London, like we're more or less near London today, but they're trying to put the Iraqi law down on London. They're just trying to put their law down on us, and we can't stand for that.
Which Iraqi law is this?
It's the Islamic law. They've got their law. Obviously, it's their law, isn't it?
The rhetoric of the war on terror is coming out of the mouths of the very people who have been doing this anti-trans propaganda for years, accepted and rolled over for by every establishment figure in the UK.
We risk becoming an island of strangers.
And given the attitudes of mainstream media and politicians to recent events in the Middle East, I'm very scared they're going to roll over just the same for this rhetoric.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
In simple terms, Kellie-Jay Keen fully and unflinchingly has adopted the language of far-right monsters like Tommy Robinson. Meanwhile, the entirety of the gender-critical movement either pretends not to notice or actively joins in. And last time there was a split in the gender-critical movement, Kellie-Jay Keen's side won. The liberal feminists gave way to the fascists, and the whole movement moved to the right. Now Kellie-Jay Keen sets the tone for the movement. There does not seem to be much of a fight against it. For example, Martina Navratilova, former tennis player and current transphobe Twitter idiot, retweeted fellow traveller Jean Hatchett's turn from the bigotry of Guardian columnists to the bigotry of Stormfront, accusing men from Afghanistan and Eritrea of enhanced rates of sexual offending, similar to the deeply Islamophobic rhetoric about Muslim grooming gangs coming from the likes of Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage, and aped again by the British Labour Party, having decided in the last 6 months that Keir Starmer was going to be doing his best Oswald Mosley impersonation. This rhetoric and the explicit goal of these people tries to paint all Muslim men as inherently predatory and being from misogynistic countries. And since they've had years accusing people of being inherently predatory and being allowed to print it in the mainstream press, making the switch to the more obviously odious and outright racist rhetoric of that same argument but for a different group comes very easily to them. J.K. Rowling, as well as financially supporting Keen and being cozy with Navratilova, is proud to support the hate group Gays Against Groomers, whose recent conference's keynote has said things like, "Ban Islam in the West. Islam is cancer. Islam is the greatest threat to Western civilization, and it's not even close. And most Hitlerian, someone needs to take the Muslims out of Europe." J.K. Rowling's response to this group: "I'll always have your back, as you have mine." I think maybe she misspelt that word. I think it's supposed to be MEIN. You know, like a camp. And then you have the Women's Safety Institute, who, in their own words, are creating a movement of women who are fed up of mass migration making our streets unsafe. Or, according to their bio, "Our mission is to expose the dangers of uncontrolled immigration, put women and girls first, advocate for victims, and demand real solutions." And I'm sure the fact that their introduction to the world was a post with the two most Hitler Youth-looking women I've ever seen in my life isn't a coincidence.
I am fed up of feeling unsafe in my home country. Mass immigration is the biggest threat facing women today. And look no further than the grooming gangs for that example, where women and girls all around the country have been and the authorities have looked the other way. The reality is importing millions of working age men, fighting age men, to this country who don't share our values, who don't share our safety, is going to lead to a disaster, and it already has. Foreign nationals are 3.5 times more likely to commit than the British.
As Rowling's victories pile up, despite her just war for Lady Athena being focused on trans people, it splits off into and attracts more of the Aryan nation types, rather than the hard-done-to women she claims to be fighting for when she's still pretending she's not a fascist herself. It's not like you have to look far to see the extremely concerning results of Rowling's labour. The EHRC, following its bathroom ban, and in response to a metric boatload of complaints from basically everyone who isn't obsessed with appealing directly to the kind of people who make Graham Linehan look a trans ally, have put out statements saying that trans people must acknowledge that we are going to have less rights. Or as they tried to politely rephrase that statement, we must acknowledge a period of correction on our rights because we have been lied to for many years about what our rights actually are. So, in other words, sorry, we gave you too many rights. You shouldn't have actually had any. We're gonna have to take your rights away, but to be honest, did you deserve them in the first place? Did you? Well, apparently we don't deserve any rights. And this isn't the fault of EHRC commissioners like Baroness Faulkner, or the ghoul that made these statements when Aqua Reindorf, but it's the fault of trans lobbyists. This is just the line about the gay agenda all over again, but this time they're using it to justify taking rights away, rather than refusing to acknowledge that we are deserving of them, which we are. And honestly, the UK always had a long way to go on that, so taking away the very little we had is, frankly, barbaric. And the group that sued to make this bathroom ban happen, and worked in collaboration with the EHRC for the response, For Women Scotland, once jubilant that they'd finally destroyed trans people for good, and that we'd all go home and detransition, or much worse, to the point where Helen Joyce was making Is Trans Over and the end of trans shows all over the place as if we were a disease, speaking about us like you would about COVID or AIDS instead of as people, as a group of people with needs and feelings, and whether the EHRC likes it or not, rights, well, apparently that victory wasn't enough. Because we trans people did not go away like they wanted. And so, they are openly, with articles in mainstream media, documenting their intentions, planning more legal action to make sure we finally go the fuck away for good. In the article in The Guardian covering the misadventures of these sad, pathetic bigots, they explicitly cite Rowling using her Harry Potter money to create the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund as one of the reasons they feel emboldened to continue, now guaranteed to be flushed with cash, and stuffed full of the kind of privilege you can only get by having the ear of every mainstream newspaper, website, TV station and politician in the country. In the words of For Women Scotland co-director Susan Smith,
"We don't want to go back to court. We really, really don't. But if we don't see some action, that may be something we will have to consider."
She said she was concerned about lack of action by the Scottish Government on prisons and school guidance.
"We have spoken to the Scottish Government and asked them to withdraw some of this guidance, just to say that it's under review, that they don't have to reissue anything at this point because it's clearly unlawful. We really do need some action. They're telling us they have to wait for the EHRC revised guidance, and we don't believe this is true."
Since April's ruling and subsequent interim advice issued soon after by the Equalities Watchdog, which amounted to a blanket ban on transgender individuals using toilets of their lived gender, much of the public discussion has focused on bathroom facilities, although the ruling has wide-ranging implications for service providers, public bodies, and businesses, Smith said.
"I wish we could stop talking about toilets all the time, because that wasn't the reason we went to court. We went to court about the prisons, about the crisis centres, about the hospitals where people are uniquely vulnerable."
She also encouraged individuals to
keep pressure on MSPs and MPs
and make use of the fighting fund announced by the writer and activist J.K. Rowling to launch their own actions.
"We really need people to stop challenging where they feel that organisations, local councils are not implementing the law. We are very fortunate to have the fighting fund that J.K. Rowling set up, and that will make a massive difference, because when people start to realise their cost, maybe they will start to apply the law."
As you can see, these people are incensed that this court case did not make us instantly disappear and turn into philosopher's stones. We're still here, because we aren't people playing dress-up, or creepy stalkers. We're people. We don't just go away because you made our lives more difficult. Would you? We have to live. If only to spite you. J.K. Rowling too is angry about this, and is once again lashing out. Hence this legal fund. Hence her using all the money your family and your friends spent innocently on Harry Potter, pretending they didn't know where it was going, to fund the proverbial giant boot to stamp on our human faces forever. So, on top of this, J.K. Rowling has finally provided an answer on how to police public toilets. Because, obviously, bathroom bans are unenforceable. But she doesn't think so. In response to being asked how she has planned to police public toilets, she replied,
"Quite easily, really. Decent men will stay out, as they always have. So we can assume all who don't are a threat, given the disregard for women and girls' safety, privacy, and dignity. Photographing, reporting, and disseminating such men's images online will be a piece of cake."
This is illegal, and J.K. Rowling knows this is illegal because she herself screamed bloody murder about a trans woman filming herself in a women's toilet on TikTok, assuming she was there to document the presumably terrified cis women in there cowering in the presence of the monstrous transsexual, the only weapon to surpass Metal Gear. So, I guess you could follow J.K. Rowling's advice, if you want to go to prison. Take pictures of random people in toilets that you suspect might be trans, and share them online to encourage harassment and abuse against them, even though most of the time, the victims of these witch hunts are cis women, particularly lesbians and butch women, because the gender-critical mantra of "we can always tell" is just a classic example of the toupee fallacy. Rowling has convinced herself she can always spot when someone is wearing a toupee, because she only ever notices when the toupee is obvious. You spot the ones you spot, and remain oblivious to the ones you missed, and then you can claim a 100% success rate, because you don't know any better. Anyone who believes they can always tell is, as you can imagine from this example, thick as pig shit, and that includes the woman who wrote about a magical race who loves being slaves. Unsurprisingly, the replies to this post were full of calls to violence against anyone suspected of not being cis in a toilet. Much like her friend Posey Parker before her, Rowling is very much in favour of violence against anyone suspected of being a trans woman in a woman's bathroom. And by cis men of all people, the people she is supposedly terrified of sharing a space with, despite being married to one and sharing the entirety of her life with him. You really have to wonder what kind of monster her husband is, if she thinks all men are inherently predatory and violent. But of course, she doesn't actually think that about cis men. The only people she finds disgusting and deserving of violence in this arena are trans women. Everything else is just post hoc rationalization of her bigotry. The hatred comes first, the justification comes second. And as if to really drive home this point, long after I finished the first, second, and even third, I think even fourth draft of the script, J.K. Rowling came out calling for violence against trans people on Twitter. So, first option, photograph. Second option, literal assault. And not just that, she called for men to perform violence on trans people, because of their inherent biological drive to protect. This woman is apparently a feminist, a moderate, and a liberal. She's not at all an exterminationist who salivates the idea of fascism and believes in a draconian view of gender built on biological essentialism and Victorian frameworks of man strong, woman weak. You know, she's progressive. Would a conservative say this?
"The highest calling of men is using their strength to defend and protect, and I honour every one of you who does it."
This is explicitly because we are still here. This movement is exterminationist to its core, as are its figureheads. No victory, no matter how devastating it is to our community, will ever be enough, unless it means that we are all compromised to a permanent end. And make no mistake, if that ever happens, if we are, God forbid, all disappeared, which I don't think will happen, in fact, fuck it, long before that they're already pivoting, they will go for immigrants and Muslims next. They're already preparing the ground for that eventuality. In fact, this is starting to feel a lot like the pivot from attacking gay rights to attacking trans rights in America. The battle against trans people is almost over, and they've decided on the next target. Be there for the Muslims in your life and your communities. Prepare to fight. We have to beat this. Several years ago, I was at a trans student conference in Manchester. One of the points raised was about transphobes and how to deal with the constant attacks from the increasingly organised gender-critical movement. Although at that point they were still calling themselves TERFs, and Rowling hadn't even touched them. She was still in her moderate liberal free speech phase. I had never spoken at any of these things before, but after a Lib Dem in the crowd came up and called for compromise and transphobes, I had enough. Shaky-handed, shaky-voiced, and entirely unprepared, I attempted to issue a rebuttal with the worst stammer-to-word ratio outside of a scatting contest. But I got a pretty enthusiastic clap. Why? Because I tried to articulate the fact that the gender-critical movement was an exterminationist group, and that to exterminate any group, you employ fascist tactics, as they were already starting to, and are way into now. And therefore, they are indistinguishable from fascists. They are fascists. And you cannot negotiate with fascism. You have to stamp them out before they can propagate. Make it clear fascists are not welcome. Make them ashamed to be fascist. Laugh at them. All the while keep on living. Long enough for those of them that are willing to change their mind, or whose minds can be changed, can realise that they were wrong. That we lived and nothing happened. We didn't bring about the downfall of Western civilization, as base as that might have been. If fascism can grow and fester, if it worms its way into our institutions, our press, our courts, and convinces it that we, or any other minority group, must be destroyed, well, then that, Goddess Athena, is an enemy I am willing to go to war against. And to be honest, I think Athena would be more on our side than that of a tyrant like J.K. Rowling. And not just because Athena is the Greek equivalent to the Celtic goddess Brigitte, but because I'll be fucking damned if we let the exterminationists win. No matter how much money they have. Many evil people have come before, flush with cash, and demanding this or that minority group be destroyed for no other reason than their own paranoid delusions about society being sick due to too many people hanging around not conforming to their narrow standards of what a person is permitted to be. And 201, they have all met their end, their goals unachieved, and their reputations forever tainted, with the whole world spitting on their names. For the rest of you, don't forget to apply for the J.K. Rowling Women's Fund, and comment with the stupid shit you put in the forms. What did you do? The Bee Movie? The Tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Let me know. And make sure you make J.K. Rowling. Read the most annoying shit you can think of. And until you come back, let the comment section know the good work you've done. Good luck. And thanks for watching. Hey, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you like this video, give it a like, leave a comment please, subscribe to it, the channel that is, share it with your friends, press that share button, that really helps, and give me a little bit of money, that could help too, because it'd make me know that you like stuff like this, and that I should make more of it. I mean, not that I'm going to stop making videos, but, you know, sometimes we do a few changes of topics every now and again. Let me know if you like stuff, so I do more of it. Or if you hate it, shut the fuck up, because that's annoying. I don't want to see that. Just don't tell me. That's a little bit petty. I'm sorry. But if you don't shut the fuck up, you can instead give me money, which will shut me up. So if you want to make me shut up, please pay me on PayPal or Coffee. Coffee. That's a website where you can give me tips, and it's nice. Or you can sign up to my Patreon or YouTube memberships and be part of the Cool Club. That's not the name for my patrons. But if you do that, you can get early videos sometimes, access to the members only Discord. You can get my Nintendo Switch friend code. I don't have a Switch 2, so I'm not on there. Exclusive content. I got long form interviews with some cool YouTubers as part of my previous videos. I get the full versions of interviews you see on this channel when they happen on the Patreon. In addition to all that good stuff, you'll also, if you sign up, you'll get your name read out at the end of each video. Just like these other people. LFR, Ahmed bin Mokhtaradzi, Taylor Wood, Trikoi, Ariella, Hannah, Proquar, Robin Thomas, Emily Eisenberg, Kathy 1410 Itchy, Daniel Van Harmelen, Big Little Boat, George Geddes, Kira B, No Sparkling Heart, Corey, Gianna J, Mighty than the Sword, Carolyn, Imogen Q, Luciano Frias Andrade, Adam, Harry, Ndog191, Cav, Quesadilla de Tortilla Azul, Leron, Adam Lees, Danielle Nevels, no, not that, Paul MB, Wandering Wonder, Lex Phoenix, Enter Kurzitz, Mira DJ, Senior, Boa, Ear, James W. Marvin, or Thorin Gill, Bob the Builder 544554, Deborah Moon, Vegas, Shadzillas Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Amelia Lissette, Jason Haig, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helen Ariel, Sierra Whiskey, Ali Catgill, John N, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Baden, Robin Podolsky, Nightlight Plushy Jesus, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Tabrogga, Soma, Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Greg Noble, Yana McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexander Lilly, PJ Lisbrough, Howard Lott, Narania Scarjan, Melissa Allen, Butt Burglar, Atarxis Builds Things, Sarah Francesca Smith, and Rachel. Thank you all. Have a lovely day. Stay strong, and fuck J.K. Rowling.
Grandfather, what are those pictures of you as a woman? Little Joanne Crowan Rowling, my normal named child. That was when I used to be a woman. Except I wasn't really, I was just a gooner.
What was I going for with this? This was improvised. This wasn't in the script. What's wrong with me? Don't record videos in the middle of June. For those of you playing the Brigitte Empire drinking game, I did just spill Coke on myself while on camera. If you spotted that, please take a drink now.
J.K. Rowling, please share this this story. It would get across to so many more people. And I'm not sure if I've hurt your feelings or what, but you never tweet anything I do or say. I hope it's just a misunderstanding.